Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video, I'm showing you how to use the scoring tool with your Cricut machine and how to score even if you don't have a scoring tool. We're going to be taking a deep dive into scoring with a Cricut in this video, both on the larger machines, such as this one here, which is a Maker 3. Everything I'm going to show you that works on the Maker 3 will also work on the Maker, and a lot of what I'm going to show you will work on the Explore Air 2 and 3 too, but I will be very clear to show you which one is which, because the Maker and Maker 3 do have a couple of other options that the Explore models don't. Now, at the moment, there is no official scoring tool for the Cricut Joy or the Cricut Joy Extra. This is the Cricut Joy Extra, and if I tilt it up, you can see Joy Extra, but the blade on this one is the same size as the Joy, so everything I'm going to show you for the Cricut Joy Extra will work on the Cricut Joy, the little blue machines as well. Okay, so why might you want to score with your Cricut? Well, if you've been following along with me for any length of time, you'll know that I do a whole bunch of cardstock projects, and that usually involves some form of scoring. Whether that's to put the line down the middle of a greetings card so I know exactly where to fold it to make sure I get even halves of the card, or if I'm making a 3D project or an envelope or a box, something like that, score lines make the whole process go so much easier. If you have a Maker or a Maker 3, then you have two options for scoring tools which will go in your machine. The first is the scoring wheel, and the second is the scoring stylus. If you have an Explore Air 2 or 3, you can't use the wheel. This is exclusive to the Maker models, but you can use the scoring stylus. And actually, even if you do have the Maker models, I found that the stylus is actually a lot more effective at scoring than the wheel. It gives a deeper score line. It's easier to do more intricate shaped score lines rather than just straight lines. And the best thing is, the scoring stylus, goes in your A-clamp in here where you would normally put your Cricut pens, which means you can keep your blade in here and set your Cricut to cut, and it will do the score and the cutting without you having to switch the tools halfway through. Whereas if you're using the scoring wheel, that goes in the same hole as your blade, your B-clamp, which means you have to load this in first, wait for it to do the scoring, and then on the screen it will tell you to take this out and put the blade in. So you have to do this step halfway through your project instead of just letting it all go at once. So it is a little bit more cumbersome to use. I just want to talk through a little bit about the pricing of these options as we go along as well. This scoring stylus, this isn't actually a Cricut brand one. This is an off-brand one that I got on Amazon, as it was a little bit cheaper than the official Cricut one. Normally, I don't advocate using the off-brand tools for your machine, and for that reason I wouldn't use, personally, of course it's all your own personal choice, but I personally wouldn't use an off-brand version of the scoring tool, because this actually goes and interacts with your machine. Your machine makes the wheel go around, and I just think it's a little bit safer to be using the Cricut brands that you know have been well tested with these machines, and of course that will be included if anything goes wrong. Your warranty won't be affected if you use the official Cricut one. The reason I use the off-brand version for this is that it doesn't actually go into the machine and interact with the mechanisms. It's just like using a pen. It just slots in there, moves back and forth in the machine, but essentially it's just a little bit of plastic with a metal end on it. So you could pick up the official Cricut versions of these for around about £10 to £12. Shop around online to find a good deal. I found at the moment they're actually a little bit cheaper on the Cricut UK website than getting it on Amazon. But if you want one of the off-brand ones like this one, this was around about £8, so you're saving a couple of pounds. The prices I'm all giving you are in British pounds. That's where I live in the UK, but it's kind of a little bit similar when you look at the dollar store if you're in America. Not the dollar store, but the, Cricut shop in dollars. The scoring wheel is significantly more expensive. So currently, if you were to just buy this one on its own, which is the single scoring wheel, it's got one little wheel in there. That costs approximately £40 on Amazon or £55 on the Cricut website. So there is quite a difference there. You can also buy it in a 2-pack where you get this one which has the single wheel and also another one in the same pack that's got 2 scoring bits in here. It's called a double scoring wheel, and the intention of that is if you're scoring something really thick, then it will score a little bit deeper. I have to say, in 4 years of having my Cricut, I think I've had it 4 years, something like that, I've never ever used the double scoring wheel, and I do primarily only cardstock. I've only ever used this single one. If you did want to buy the pack with both of them in, currently on Amazon that's about £57 and it is a whopping £76.49 on the Cricut shop. So it's quite expensive. However, one of the benefits of these tools that go in the Maker or the Maker 3 is they've got what's called quick swap housing. So if you have any of the other tools, you'll know this because you'll have this bit, it will look the same. There's a little pressy down bit on the top and you can push that and it takes the tool off the bottom. Don't get this confused with the rotary blade that the Cricut Maker comes with in the box. That's different. It doesn't have the ability to take it off the bottom. Likewise, if you've got the knife blade for the Cricut Maker, that has its own housing. That's not part of this quick swap housing. But if you've got the engraving tool, the perforation tool, that's the only two I can think of, wavy blade tool, then that comes with this quick swap housing. So you could, if you've got one of them, not buy the whole scoring wheel with the housing again because you'll already have it. You can just buy the scoring wheel on its own. It just comes like this, and that is a little bit cheaper. And then you just push the button on the top and it slides in, and then that's all ready to use. So that was a very long-winded introduction to the different types of scoring tool that we're going to be trying out on the larger machines. But what about my poor Cricut Joy Extra that doesn't have any scoring tools officially available? Well, we're going to be doing some Cricut hacks for this to get it to work. I'm going to show you a couple of different options to see what works and what doesn't. And I am learning along with you in this video. I haven't tried any of these yet. I am doing it completely for the first time in this video, so we're going to get to see which of my ideas works well and which doesn't work. I'm expecting there to be a couple of fails along the way, but we'll see. The first thing I'm going to try is doing some score lines on a bit of cardstock, and I'm going to use the absolute lightest cut setting that the Cricut Joy Extra will possibly let me do to see if that ends up looking like a score line or if it goes too deep in my cardstock that actually it's no good because it's more like cutting rather than scoring. The second thing I'm going to do is showing how you can use Cricut pens to draw your score lines onto your cardstock, and then we'll manually score with a manual scoring tool, which the one I've got. Oops, trying to pick up too many things at once now. Okay, the manual scoring tool. I've got one which looks like this. It's just a little wheel in there, but you can also use a pair of scissors opened up. Then we'll go along the pen lines manually to create those scores. I'm thinking that's probably going to be the best option, but we'll wait and see. I will reserve judgment. And then the third option I'm going to try is with the Cricut Joy foil transfer tool. This is kind of the only tool that we can put in our Joy at the moment, or the Joy Extra. It fits in both. And this sort of kind of is like the scoring tool. It's designed to be used on foil. It's pressure activated foil. So this would go over the foil and draw on it to push the foil, the shininess onto your cardstock. So we're going to try it without actually adding the foil to see if this will replicate score lines for us. And if that does work, just be careful if you're going to buy one because there are two different versions. There's this one, which is for the bigger machines. And this one actually says Cricut Joy. This is the only one that will fit in the Joy or the Joy Extra. So just make sure if you do decide to get one of these following this video to do your scoring, that you purchase the right one. All right, that was my super duper long introduction. So now let's jump into Design Space and I'll show you the different tests we're going to be running on some different score lines, as well as how to add score lines, how to use them in Design Space. To start, open up Cricut Design Space and begin a new project. Make sure you've got the correct machine selected in the drop down up here. I'll show you first with my Maker 3. Let's say that we've got a square and we want to add a score line down the middle. Let's make my square go 4 inches, and I'll zoom in a bit so the rest is easier to see. To add a score line, you would go into Shapes, and then this single line at the top is a score line. When you click on it and then click away, you see it's a dashed line, which shows that it is a score line. It's not actually going to do the line in dashes when it scores. It will be a straight single line, but this is just a way for us to easily visually see in Design Space what it looks like and that it is going to be a score. You can click on it and resize it. So let's go the same height as my square. And then to put it exactly in the middle, drag a box around both of those and go align and then center. Now at the moment, even though I've positioned it on my canvas, if I was to click make, you'll notice that it's putting the score line on a different color of card to my square. Obviously that's not what we want to do. Now, what you need to do to tell the Cricut exactly where to do that score line is to select both the layers, the score line and the shape we want it to score on, and down the bottom of the layers panel, press attach. Attach is the magic button that tells it where to score. So now if I click make, you see it's got that score line exactly down the middle, exactly where we want it to be. You can change shapes to score outlines as well. So for example, if we insert a heart, under the operations menu down here, you could change it to a score line, and then that will score on your cardstock or whatever material you put into your Cricut. You can do the same on images, SVGs you've uploaded, and text. You can change all of it into a score. So that we've got a couple of different options to test our different techniques with, I'm going to give my heart a little offset so it's got a background. And then I'll change that to a score line. You can't see it now because it's black on black. I'll put that back to yellow and attach those together. So now we're going to be testing not only a straight score line, but also scoring into a shape. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and get these cut on my Maker 3. I'll do it once with the scoring stylus that I showed you and once with the scoring wheel, and then we will compare the two. And I'm not sure my camera will quite pick up if there are any differences because it'll be quite subtle, but I'll try and show the difference between the two of them. When you're going through the cut process and you're using the Maker or Maker 3, where it says load tools and material, it will default to the scoring wheel. And for this one, because I've put that it's heavy cardstock, it's actually recommending the double scoring wheel, which is the one I said I've never actually used. You can change this by clicking the Edit Tools link here, where you can either go to a single scoring wheel or the scoring stylus. So for my first test, I'll do the stylus, so then press apply. You'll see that it changes here. The instructions will change. If you're using the stylus, that goes in clamp A. If you're using the scoring wheel, then you need to take the blade out and put it in the clamp B like I showed at the beginning. Here are the results of my test on the Maker 3 with the two different types of scoring tool. I'm just going to block out one of my lights a bit so you can hopefully see this a little better. So this top one, these are the score lines from the stylus. It's done a lovely job at both of them. And then if I look at the bottom, this was with the wheel. Now these score lines look much more obvious on the camera screen that I'm looking at. And it has actually done a deeper score line on these ones, which is where you can see it a bit more than you can see those ones. I find that interesting because generally when I'm actually doing proper craft projects, I find it's the other way around and the stylus goes a little bit deeper, but maybe that's just luck of the day. Don't worry that it's gone off the bottom of the page. That was just my fault for using card that wasn't big enough. But one thing that I'm not sure you'll be able to really see, let's try, is that on the heart, because the wheel can only move in certain directions, where it meets the point and where it meets the point here, there is a little overlap on those score lines. It's not perfect. There's extra bits scored. I mean, okay, it's only like 1 millimeter, but it is still there. I'm hoping you can just see that. So it's not perfect, whereas the one that was done by the scoring stylus is a perfect heart all the way around. I'm just going to try drawing in what it did on this one. Just drawing in the score lines. So that makes it a bit clearer. You can see what it's done. It hasn't quite hit those points. It's gone over on both of them. It's not as neat. So the straight line, they're very comparable. But if you're doing anything that has curves, then I think the stylus just gives you a much better option. I'm just drawn in that score line on the top one. And on that one, it's perfect points. All right, so that's a little look at the differences between those two. But what if you don't have one of those? Okay, so we're going to do a few different options. I will say, if you have the Maker or Explore models, honestly, I would just get a scoring stylus for the sake of around £10. It's the cheapest option by far, apart from the first thing we're going to try. But if you're in a pinch and you need a scoring tool right now and you don't have one and you can't go out and get one, then one of these other methods will hopefully work in a pinch. But if you've got the Joy or the Joy Extra, you'll have to use one of these methods. Unfortunately, this just doesn't go in. Just to show you, if I put it in, it fits in the hole, but it isn't held securely at all. Even with that clamp shut, it just goes in and out. And that's because it relies on it going up to the triangle here for it to clip into place. And the Joy Extra and the Joy is just not big enough. If I tilt it, you can see there's like a whole inch of space before it gets to that triangle. So that's just not going to work. So let's get on with our experimenting of 3 possible ways to do scoring without a scoring tool. And the first will be using the very, very lightest cut setting on each of our machines. I'll try it on both to see how that works. First, let's do it on the Maker 3. So now we're pretending we don't have a scoring tool, so I'm going to detach this, and then my score line, because there's no scoring tool, you need to change it to a basic cut, and that is just now a single cut line. And again, on the heart, I'll detach it, change that score to a cut. Ooh. Yeah, a cut, that was right. That is what it's going to do. It's going to fill it in when you change it to a cut. And then select both of those and attach. Now I've just realised this actually isn't going to work how I thought, because if I set this to just be a really light cut, it means the outside is going to cut really lightly too, which means my outside won't actually cut through like I want it to. So we're going to have to duplicate our bottom layer a few times. That way the Cricut will go all the way around the edge. Let's go for 5 times instead of once, and then just do that line that we want it to be a fake score line just once. So hopefully this will work. As I said, this is all an experiment that I'm doing it the first time with you. You can duplicate in place by pressing the Alt key on your keyboard and moving the mouse a little bit. You see when I press the Alt and then move it, it changes to get the little plus sign next to my mouse. I'm going to click on that square 4 times, and now I've got 4 copies in the Layers panel plus my original. I'll move all of these to the back, send to back, and then drag a box around all of those and my line and attach them. I'll need to do the same thing on the heart, so I'll hide that, duplicate that 4 times, Move my heart back to the top, drag a box around all of that, and attach. When you attach, it will change it to look more like a single line again. So now I'm going to click Make, and let's change it to A4, which is what I'm actually using, so I won't go over the edge again, and press Continue. I want to change this to the lightest cut setting it can possibly do. So that blade hopefully is hardly going to touch my card, so that the lines that we want to be scored will just go a little bit into the paper, the card. To do this, click Browse All Materials, and we'll go all the way to the bottom where it says Material Settings. Scroll down here. The Maker and Maker 3 can do a lot of different things. Right down the bottom, it says Add New Material. So press that and then give it a name. Sorry, I was just moving my Cricut mat cover off of my keyboard. Let's call it Sarah, just so that I know this is a custom one. Lightest possible Maker 3. Actually, it probably doesn't need Maker 3 because it'll work on everything. Let's just go lightest possible and save. And then it will take this up here. So I'm going to drag that down to the lowest number it can do, which is 70, the least pressure. And I don't want that. That's telling it that we want it to do each line multiple times. We definitely don't want that. And it is with the fine point blade, so that's fine. And I'll go save. Okay, so now browse all materials, search, and here it is. Press done. And let's give it a go and see if it works. I'm going to run this through so that you can see it working on my Maker 3, just to make it a little bit clearer what we've actually done. So when I click the Flash and Go button, it's going to do my square and my heart. It will do the line that we set once, and then the actual outline of the square and the heart, it will cut 5 times. So I'll show it to you. I will speed it up and also take off the noise of the machine whirring, because I think that'll end up a little bit grating on camera. But let's see what it's going to do. Okay, so that's gone ahead and done that, and I was putting my fingers up for each time it was repeating. I had 6 up because I couldn't actually tell from looking when it was doing the one that we want to just do once and when it was doing the outline. So that makes 6 in total, which is, in case you're wondering why there were 6 fingers, that was why. So let's see what it's done. Okay, it's kind of looking good actually. Let's give it a go. I am using quite thick cardstock, which will help. If you're using thin card, this won't work as well because that lighter cut's got more chance of going through your materials. Okay, so it's cut my shapes out perfectly, and that has worked really well. I'm going to have to block my light out again so that you can see. Just holding some card. So there's my line down the middle that it's cut really lightly. It has sort of noticed on the back, but it's not cut through, it's not broken. It is a little bit weak where it has done quite deep. And the same on this one. It hasn't actually cut through, it's just basically scored it. So that was actually a success using fairly thick cardstock and my Maker 3 on the lightest cut setting. So now that that was a success, I kind of didn't think it was going to be. Let's try it on the Joy Xtra 2 and see if it works on that one. To switch this over to the Joy Xtra, I just need to change my machine selection in here to Joy Xtra, and then that will be fine because everything was already set to a cut. If you had things that were set as score lines and you tried changing it, you'll probably find that they'll automatically change to a cut line. And now that I have changed it to my Joy Xtra, because it doesn't come with any scoring tools, now when I go into shapes, this is no longer a scoring tool, it's a scoring line, it's just a line. And when you click it, it's a solid line, not a dashed line. And when you click it here, it says it's a basic cut, and you don't have the option to change it to a score line because the Joy and Joy Xtra don't have that capability. But we're going to see if we can fake it with these two. It's exactly the same setup. So I've got 5 copies of the main shape and then 1 just of the bit that we want to give it the score effect. Let's press make and change it to my A4 paper, move it away a little bit, continue, and then let's see if it will let me do my setting that I set on the maker or if I'm going to need to do a new one. Let's see. That hasn't come up, has it? Because I called it Sarah lightest setting. So these are ones I've set at another time. All right, we'll have to make a new one. So we'll go browse all materials, scroll down until we can see this material settings, all the way down to the bottom, add new material. So let's call this lightest, can't spell, lightest setting. Actually, let's put Joy lightest setting and save. Drag this down to as low as it'll go, which is still 70. And everything else is right. So I'll press save. Click away from that. Browse all materials. Joy lightest setting. Oops. Click done. And now I'm going to give that a go. In fact, you could probably make it even lighter by changing the pressure to less. I'm going to do that because I think that'll make a difference actually. And then when it does the one line that we want to be our little fake score line, it won't be quite as deep. So I'm going to keep that on less pressure. And you could probably do that with the Maker or Maker 3 or whatever other machine you're using too, to be fair. I probably should have noticed that when I did the Maker 3 test, but it worked anyway, so I'm not going to complain. Right, let's give this a go in the Joy Xtra. Once again, it should do everything 6 times, once for the scoreline lines and then 5 copies of our outlines. Let's give it a try. All right, let's see how this is done. It's looking good so far. Let's see, let's take it off the mat. Oh, amazing. It's done it right again. That's brilliant. Okay, where's my little pack of cardstock to block out my light? This is the rectangle. Got the line down the middle. My outside's been perfectly cut. And it's got a nice line that'll be easy to fold. Just like with the other one, it is a little bit deeper than a scoring tool would normally do. So if you were making something maybe 3D that needed a lot of stability, it's not probably going to be ideal. This has cut through a little bit more, I think, than the Maker 3 did. And I'm just going to try pulling the sides to see if it breaks. It doesn't seem to. Oh, it actually, yeah, see, it's not very strong. Compared to a regular score line, it is much weaker. So if you're in a pinch, that would probably work. as long as you are then gentle with whatever you're making. If you're making something that's going to be folded and unfolded like a card along that line, it's probably not going to be the best because it's going to get really weak. The more you fold it and open your card, the weaker that line will get because it'll get deeper and deeper. So it did work, and I am kind of happy that it worked, but it's not the best. Let's see if we can do better. For the next test, I'm going to use some pens to draw where I want to score and then manually score it. That's going to be very tricky on this one because it is a curve. To be honest, I don't think I'll even be able to do it. But certainly for straight lines, if you're doing anything with straight lines, which is going to be the majority of your scoring projects, will be either straight or maybe in just a little curve, but primarily straight for things like greetings cards, envelopes, boxes, most 3D things. Straight lines is where it's going to be at. So we'll detach these, delete all the copies of those hearts. We've just got the one left. And then I'll change this to a draw tool. Make sure you've got the correct machine selected because they use different pens. I'll go pen and I'll just set it to black. That's fine. And the same on this one, delete them, so I've only got one left. Oops. Change that to pen, and then attach them again. You still need to attach pen lines, just like we've attached all the other ones. I'm going to just do this on the Cricut Joy Extra because it'll work exactly the same with the larger machines too, so there's no point in me testing this twice. But I will do it on two different types of material. I'll do it once on my white card with a black pen to show you it in the most obvious way, a black line on a white bit of paper. But then I'll do it again using a pen that kind of matches the colour of the card to show you that if you are using this method, it doesn't have to be really obvious and you can blend it in. Now I've got this ready, I'll click on make, and it will be a bit different depending on if you are using the Joy or Joy Extra or the larger machines, because the Joy and Joy Extra only have one hole in them. So if you're using those like I am, it will tell you to take the blade out and to put the pen in. Whereas if you're using the Explore or Maker models, they have a separate hole for the pens, the clamp A. So it will tell you to put your pen in clamp A and your blade in clamp B. But I'm going to have to do it one at a time. So let's take a little look at that. So for my Joy Extra, I need to take my blade out. And is it metallic here to hold the blade? I know the original Joy is. Yeah, it is. So I can just put that there so I don't lose it. And then load in the pen. If you have lots of Cricut pens, make sure you pay attention to which one you're using because they are different sizes depending on the different machine. It's very slight, but this one here with the long nib, this is for the bigger machines. And then these ones which have a shorter nib and they're also a little bit wider and a bit more rounded. These ones are for the Joy, and you'll know that because it says Joy on it. They are a different size and not compatible, so I can't use one of those pens in that one, can't use the Joy pen in the larger machines. So just check that you've got the right one. Take the lid off, put it in, and close up. If you're putting in a pen into one of the larger machines, let's just show you, can I fit it into my screen? That would go in the one here. Take the lid off, and then you see the arrow on the pen on this one, you would put it in, and I'm not sure if you can hear, but that clicked. So put it in and then push down. I can see the arrow still at the moment, but you want to push down until you hear that click and you can't see the arrow anymore. And that's how you know that the pens in the bigger machines are incorrectly. But I'm not using this one, so let's mind it out of the way. And we'll go back over here. Load that in. And my screen would give me the go button. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Okay, maybe you shouldn't put the blade on there. My pen knocked it off. Okay, so this is going to wear away now and do the draw lines first. Then it pauses. The screen on Design Space has changed. It's telling me to put my blade in. So I'm going to do that. There we go, close it up, press go on the screen again. If you're wondering why I'm pressing the go on my computer, it's because the Joy and Joy Xtra don't have buttons on the actual machines. You do it all through Design Space, whereas the bigger ones, they've got the buttons on them here. So it's a little bit different. Now this will do the cut around the edge. If you're wondering why it did my cut twice, it's because I've got it set on the heavy cardstock setting, which double cuts everything. It's not because I had extra layers left over in Design Space. It's just because of the particular card I'm using. Let's see how this looks. Got my shapes cut out. And then I've got the lines here. So then what I would do is get a craft mat or similar to protect the work surface. Can't actually see it. I don't know where it is. It's really big as well, but it's not right here. And then do the score line manually. I'm going to go grab my mat. All right, so I'll do this square one because I'm not going to try and manually score a heart shape. That's just really hard. So I've got a ruler, metal ruler. It down the score line, and then you can either use a pair of scissors or a special scoring tool. If you're using scissors, please be careful. What you do is open them up and just go down that line with the scissors so it scores the card. A safer option, but obviously it's another thing to buy, is to use a scoring tool. You can get all kinds of different ones. But it got a little wheel in there, so it's kind of similar to the Cricut scoring wheel, it's just a little bit safer. Go down there, and then that is the perfect score on my line, and you can fold it. But it's a little bit obvious, so what you can do instead, not so much if you're using white, but you can try and match the pen colour to the type of card you're using. If you are using white, you can get like really pale yellow pens, which would blend in a lot better than doing black or any of the pale colours. The thing about the Cricut pens is you can't just buy one colour, you have to buy them all as a set of around 30 different ones. So it is a bit of an investment in the beginning if you want the different colours, but once you've got them, then it opens up the whole world of Cricut draw projects, which means you can start doing extra things like writing on words or doing pictures and lots of fun things you can do with the pens. So they are nice to have, and of course it's going to give us that option to do the score lines if we need it to. But I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, not on camera, but I'll show you the end result of doing it on some pink card. And I use a pink pen just to show that it can end up looking a bit less obvious than this one. Here's my square with the pink pen, which was this one drawn on it. I matched the colour as best I could, and you can see it is much more subtle, and you wouldn't even really notice it once the card is folded, compared to that one where it is quite obvious. So you definitely can blend in those pens. Obviously you can't see it on the back because it's only drawn on one side. So there we go, that is scoring by hand, but using the pens to make it a little bit easier and know exactly where we need to do it. Now for the third and final test, we are moving on to using the foil tool. This is brand new. I bought it just for this video, so I haven't used it yet. So I'm going to give it a go and see how this one works. As I showed at the beginning, the foiling tool does come in two versions, one for the Explore and Maker models and one for the Joy and Joy Xtra. If you don't have one for the Maker or Maker 3 and you're looking for a way to score, honestly, don't buy one of them. They're so expensive compared to the scoring stylus. Just get the scoring stylus. But we'll see how it works for the Joy Xtra. So I'm going to need to change my lines from draw to foil. I'm not going to worry about the colour because we're not actually going to foil. And that's still all attached, that's fine. And I'll change that one to foil too. And click make. Change my paper. And then continue. And I think this is going to work similar to the pens in that I'm going to put the foil tool in first and it will do that before the actual cutting. I'm not going to worry about that because that's to protect the foil. So when you lay the foil on your card, you don't want the wheels in the machine to actually mark that foil. Because we're not using it, we're just pretending we're using it to fool the Cricut. I'm not going to bother doing that. All right, so now is where we ignore what it's telling us. The first thing we will need to do is to load the foil tool into the machine. It's then telling us that we would need to tape our foil onto the design. Not going to do that because we're not actually using foil. I'm just going to put my cardstock on my mat like normal and then load the mat in. Within the box for my foil tool, it contained a little instruction booklet, some foil, which we're going to ignore. And then the tool comes in two parts. We've got the holder and the actual, I'm going to call it a blade. It's not a blade because it doesn't cut, but I'll call it a scoring tool because that's what we're going to use it for. So it's just got a little thing on it. It's quite sharp, so this might end up marking too much. We'll see. You can just turn that over and drop it in. There's a magnet in there, so it's not going to come out. And then replace that for the scoring one. Now I can put that on the magnet because I don't have a pen to knock it out of place. And then I need to move things about again. I don't have a lot of room for machines on my desk. I keep putting other things in the way. Right. And I will move that. All right, so now I can press go on the screen and it's going to do what it thinks it's foiling. So this should go down and just do those lines that we want to be scored. Ooh, that looks good. I like that. Okay, let's see what the screen says. It's now telling me I would take the foil off of my card and change the blades. We'll ignore the foil bit, but change that to our regular blade. There we go. And then click go again. Now it's going to do the cutting. Okay, so we have score lines. This is very exciting. Block this up again so you can see. There we go. It's a very faint line. I'm not sure it's actually going to be deep enough to be able to fold successfully along it. Give it a go. I think we may have found our hack. Okay. So can I fold? Oh, it is just deep enough. Remember, I am also using really thick card. If it was thinner card, it would have worked better. But I folded that along that line. It's perfectly in half. So there we go, success. Brilliant. Now, if you were doing this and you found that it wasn't quite scoring enough, you can double up the score or the foil tool score to make it a little bit deeper. So for the very last part of this video, I'll show you how to do that in Design Space. But overall, that worked brilliantly. And I would say if you're looking for a way to score on a Cricut Joy or Joy Xtra, this little foil tool, here's the box again. That works just as well as a scoring tool. It is a little bit more expensive. It's currently running on about £30 on Amazon, $32.50 on the Cricut UK website. But if you're going to be doing lots of projects that involve scoring, then perhaps it's worth it. All right, let's double up that scoreline in Design Space, and then that will be our final test. And then that's it for my little scoring experiment. To double up these lines, we get a bit of a deeper score. First, I'll detach all my layers and then click the score line and do our duplicate in place tool again that we did earlier. So press the Alt key, wait until your cursor changes. You might need to wiggle the mouse a bit and click. And now you see I've got an extra one. There's two now in the same place. Drag a box around them and attach. I'll do the same thing on this one. Like that one, and then I'll put that through the Cricut Joy Xtra again with the foil tool, and we'll see if those score lines end up a little bit deeper, or maybe they'll be too deep this time. We'll see. This time it has done a much deeper score line. I can actually feel that score line when I run my finger over it this time, whereas last time I couldn't really feel it. So that is looking better. Take it off the mat and see. And I've just stuck my mat to my desk. Okay, so yeah, that is a much deeper score line. Oh, that's easier. Yeah, that's better. Okay, I would say for this particular cardstock, that is my ultimate solution for scoring on my Joy Xtra, using the foil transfer tool and 2 copies of that score line. And you can use that same trick of duplicating the score lines for any of these methods. You wouldn't really need to use it for the pen because you'd just be drawing the same line twice. But if you've got the bigger machines and you're using the scoring stylus or the scoring wheel and you find that it isn't scoring deep enough, you can do that same thing. Just duplicate your score line in exactly the same place, attach it all together, then it will do each score line twice, so you'll get a deeper score. And just bear in mind, if you suddenly start using a lighter weight material, you probably won't need to do that because the scoring will be just fine. If you're using a really, really heavy material like craft board, maybe you might even need 3 copies of the score line to get as deep as you need. But there we go. That was my quite long in the end, actually. Look at different ways to score on a Cricut machine, whether you have the bigger machines like the Explore Air 2, Explore Air 3, Maker or Maker 3, or the smaller machines, the Joy or Joy Xtra. So you now have loads of different options to choose. And just to recap, my favourite methods for the larger machines, it is the scoring stylus. It's the cheapest option, about £10 for this tool, and it works really, really well. And then my top selection for the Joy or the Joy Xtra is to use the foil transfer kit and double up on those score lines. If you have a favourite method of scoring, let me know in the comments, or if you have a way of doing it that isn't in this video at all, again, let me know because I always love learning new tricks. But I hope that this video has been helpful and it opens up a whole new world of paper craft projects for you. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!